Good morning. It's Monday. Monday. It's 9/11, you guys. 9/11/2023. Can you guys believe it's been like 22 years since the 9/11 tragedies happened? Oh man, what a time it has been since then. We have been talking about discernment, and today we will be talking about the number one core value of family. Now, as we discussed before, we all have different core values that we live by, but there are a top five core values that most people have, or the average person has. And so we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into those core values and how it relates to your discernment, how you discern, the roadblocks that you have along the way, just different things like that. So, without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into today's topic, which is the core value of family. And we are continuing the the reading of A Yearn to Discern. We are on chapter 5, so we are steady making progress. This is your daily dose of discernment. So, welcome. Good morning and happy Monday. Good morning to you and happy Monday. We are continuing the book reading of A Yearn to Discern, finding purpose and fulfillment through discernment. And we have talked about this lottie dottie. Every doggone body needs discernment. Okay. So make sure that you share this video. But at the very least, like the video, give it a thumbs up so you let other people know that this is some really good information that they need to get into. Okay, honey? So, let's go ahead and get into it. The last time we were here, we talked about core values, principles, rules. We were all up and through chapter 5, okay? So this is where we are, right? We are on my humble family beginnings, okay? But the last time we were here, we talked about the different core values and how it factors into your decision making. So we did a scenario, and then of course we went into um, breaking down how family factors into your core values and stuff like that. Okay, so let me just do this really quick recap right here. We talked about core values, and then you see the chart in front of you talks about the 50 widely or most widely used core values. And then right underneath there, it talks about the 10 shared core values, which is what most people have. And then the top 5 core values. So over the next couple of days, we are going to be talking about the top 5 core values. And that's family, love, respect, happiness, and success. So today we're going to start off with family. And this is what we read last time we were here. The first core value I choose to lead with is the core value of family. I choose to discuss family first because family is the first core value we are exposed to and the one that has the biggest effect upon our lives. Okay. Whether you're born into a family steeped with rich traditions or you've just reached the age of 45 and are still searching for your birth parents who gave you away, or even if you grew up in foster care, that initial family environment we are raised in shapes the lens through which we see the world. Okay. So this is what we established last time we were here, is that our family has a major impact on how we view the world. And that's even if you didn't grow up with a traditional family, or you did, or whatever um your origin story is, um that factors into how you see the world. The structure we're born and raised in is the environment that sets the foundation for your belief system. Okay. Now, we are not going to get into a whole lot about my family in this particular broadcast. We are going to talk about the author's family. And so this is where we left off, is my humble family beginnings. And this is where R.L. Maco, the author of A Yearn to Discern, talks about her family of origin and how that shaped her views. So let me go ahead and do a quick copyright disclaimer as we get into doing this review of this book, okay? And it reads like this: my humble family beginnings. I am number 5 of 8 children, born to the same 2 parents who lived together for a long time, but who were never married. Okay? Now, as you are listening to this story, just take into consideration the different characteristics, attributes, the different facts about how the author basically, was brought into this world, and how her family shaped her, right? So this is very, very key here, right? Because what we know is that the number, right? The number child that you are, right? Whether you're firstborn, you're the youngest, you're the middle child, each number has a different implication, right? So where you fall in the number ranking, I guess, of your siblings has a major impact on how you view the world and how you make decisions, okay? So that's the first key that we need to realize here. So what number are you? What number are you? Are you the only child? Are you the youngest? Are you the oldest? I am second to the youngest, and I am the only girl. So those two factors about me, have major implications in how I view the world and how I move about in the world, okay? So once you hear this, get in the chat and let me know what number you are, okay? And of how many. So I am number 4 of 5, okay? Number 4 of 5, and I'm the only girl, okay? And then another key here is that there's 8 of them. She was born to the same 2 parents as the rest of her siblings. They lived together. Imagine having 8 children with someone, and you live with that person, but you never get married. Okay? Now those are two other factors that we need to consider. Okay? Let's continue reading. In fact, my father was married to another woman when he met my mother. Oh, wow, you guys, this is getting deep fast. Okay. This is getting really deep really fast. Okay, we're just 2 sentences in. You guys, we are 2 sentences in, and okay, this is major. This is major factors about, her upbringing. Okay. He left his wife for my mother shortly after they met. So he was married. I wonder how long he was married to this other woman, and if he was married to her the entire time. They had 8 kids together. He never married R.L. Maco's mother, but stayed married to this other woman. I wonder, did they stay married the entire time? Okay. My parents were both born in the United States as descendants of slaves. They were both Southerners who migrated to the North for better economic opportunities. They sought to escape the overwhelming oppression of the South, just as many blacks did in the early 1900s. Okay, these are major implications here. Major implication. We're just in the first paragraph of R.L. Maco's family of origin story. Okay, and already we have gotten a lot of information about her that gives us a very good basis for how she came up in the world. Okay. Next paragraph. My father was born in Ocala, Florida, but grew up in Tampa, Florida. He was one of 6 children born to a woman who was indigenous to America and a father who was African American. Wow. Okay. This is telling us a lot, you guys. Telling us a lot. My father entered the military at the ripe young age of 17. Mine did too. He went in when he was 17 as well. Okay. And retired from the military in his late 30s by the time he met my mother. Oh, wow. So he had already had a career, retired from the military, and then he met her mother. Okay, wow. This is interesting. Upon retirement, my father settled in Long Island, New York, and bought a string of stores in a strip mall in Hempstead, New York. Okay, so he retired, met her mother, was married to another woman at the time, okay? Settled in New York and bought a string of stores, okay? One of which was a candy store. Okay, yeah, a good old candy store, honey, okay? He was considered to be a handsome, well-established, and financially stable man by anyone's standards, okay? My mom is from Selma, Alabama, okay? Now, we know that Selma, Alabama has a lot of rich racial history, okay? Now, her mother, she said, was indigenous to America and her father was African American. Okay, so that gives us some insight there. The city widely considered to be the birthplace of civil rights in the United States, right, which is Selma, Alabama. She is an only child whose mother died essentially in childbirth some 10 days after my mom was delivered by a midwife. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So her mom's mom pretty much died giving birth to her. Wow. Okay. My mom's mother hemorrhaged to death due to lack of medical attention after giving birth, a common occurrence that has haunted poor Black mothers who had no means of getting to a hospital during the time when my mom was born. Wow. Okay. I'm telling you, this gives you a lot of insight into a person when you know their origin story, right? Their birth origin story, their family of origin makes a huge impact into decision making. Okay? Huge impact into decision making. Consequently, my mom never knew her mother. She was raised by her grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my great-grandmother's husband, William Johnson. Okay, so her grandmother's husband. She didn't say her great-grandfather. Did you notice that? My great-grandmother and my great-grandmother's husband, which means that wasn't her biological grandfather. That's what this is telling me. Okay. Now, you guys, when you actually listen and you read a person's story, right, you have to actually pay attention to the different elements, to the way that they say things, how they word things, because a lot of people would never have picked up on this. My great grandmother and my great grandmother's husband. Okay. A lot of people would not have picked up on that, but it makes a difference. It makes a difference. It has an impact. I guess I should say it has an impact as opposed to saying it makes a difference. You know, it has an impact. Okay, so my mother grew up in a household as the only child. Okay, so she grew up as the only child, which means that I'm wondering, I guess her mother was also the only child, right? Yeah, that's what it said here. Her mother was the only child and she was the only child. Then she ends up being raised by her great grandmother and her great grandmother's husband. Okay. Unfortunately, she was witness to a household virtually oblivious to love. Wow. Robbed of peace and prone to violence. My mom never, my mom never heard the words "I love you" growing up. And she was the type of child who did as she was told. So she did as she was told, but she never had any type of words of affirmation, love, you know, compassion, or anything like that, sounds like, okay? Understanding her surroundings quite quickly as she got older, my mom focused her sights on getting out of the house one day, right? So she understood what she was, the environment she was raised in. And so she always was like, okay, look, a lot of us did this, right? As soon as I get old enough, as soon as I turn 18, but probably back in that day, it was less than 18. You probably get married pretty young back then. But for me, during my time, it was like, as soon as I turn 18, I am getting out of this house, So I bet, a lot of us went through that. Okay, let's continue reading. And as sure as there are 24 hours in a day, at the age of 18, okay, my mom left Selma on the verge of committing a crime against her grandmother's husband. What? On the verge of committing a crime against her grandmother's husband? See, there she goes again, her grandmother's husband, right? After he displayed his unequivocal hate for her in a very despicable way. It had everything to do with my mom's desire to complete college. My mom was extremely bright and finished high school early. Upon graduation, she attended the Alabama Lutheran Academy and College. She was studying to become a teacher. The college she attended was several miles away from home, so during the week, she would stay at a cousin's house who lived near the college. She would only come home on the weekends to do chores. So she would come home only on the weekends to do chores? So it's like, what? She had y'all, this is like, you need to come on home and do your chores this weekend, then you can go back. Okay. Okay, all right. Whenever she came home, she did her best to stay out of Mr. Johnson's way so he wouldn't beat her like he did her grandmother. See? Domestic violence, you guys, okay? My mom was good at listening and speaking only when spoken to. Y'all, I totally got that skill down too when I was young. But she and Mr. Johnson never liked each other. One time, he had the gall to to tell her he wished she was a boy. My mom took most things on the chin, but the last straw was when he withheld the final tuition payment she needed in order to complete her last semester of college. Oh my gosh. She was almost done, y'all. This act of hate changed my mom forever and altered her view of the world. Their mutual dislike for one another was out in the open, but there was no way she could act upon it. Okay. When it was clear my mom would not be able to finish college, she applied for and obtained a job in New York as a live in maid. Y'all, she was that close to finishing, and this man withheld the payment so she couldn't finish college. She had to apply to work as a live in maid, y'all. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being that close to finishing college? Like you are, like you could taste the degree at this point, right? Like you are at the finish line. You have got to be kidding me. Okay. This man hated her that much. Like, oh no, you not finishing. Okay. Not on my dime. Ooh, child. Okay, let's continue. She was happy to pack her bags and leave Alabama for New York with a mere $125 she kept in her bra that was given to her by my great grandmother. Wow. And her great grandmother probably had to sneak and give her that money, y'all. You do know that, right? Like the men like that, especially like he tried to keep her from, well, he did keep her from finishing school, right? They don't want you to give money to, to your daughters, your granddaughters, or you know what I'm saying? They don't want you to give money. So she probably had to sneak and give her granddaughter that money, or her great granddaughter. My great grandmother had to slip the money. See, my great grandmother had to slip the money to my mom in secret, or her husband would have beaten her. Yep. See, I told y'all. My mom had to do the same thing, y'all. That's how I noticed. My mom had to do the same thing. She was sneaking, like, give me money, or she was sneaking buy clothes. She had to sneak around and do stuff like that because these men who are like this, they do not want you to benefit in any way, prosper in any way, be able to have independence, control of your own life, to be able to make any type of moves for yourself, any choices or anything like that. So they try to withhold any type of benefits to you or any type of resources to you so that you will not succeed. So that's what he was trying to prevent her from doing, succeeding. Okay. On her way out the door, my great grandmother told my mom that if she didn't work out in New York, she could always come back home, or that if it didn't work in New York, she can come back home. My mom, however, having this family dynamic at the forefront of her mind, vowed never to return to Alabama, and she never did. Y'all, I low-key wish I had. I low-key wish I hadn't returned to Alabama, okay? Y'all just don't understand, okay? But I'm gonna tell y'all all about that story later. My mom landed a job on Long Island as a maid for a Jewish family who lived in Long Beach, New York. These types of jobs were some of the only jobs available for Black women in the North at the time. Back in Alabama, my mother's family was cotton farmers, and my mom knew she did not want to spend the rest of her life picking cotton from sunup to sundown for only $2 a day. She said factories were not hiring at that time, and even if they were, her family did not have transportation to get her to and from the factory. So she felt that the best option was to go north. And a lot of people felt this back during that time period. So a lot of people from the South, migrated to the North at that time. My family was no different. They did the exact same thing. They migrated to Michigan, Detroit. Okay. Housekeeping jobs up north were frequent. Hold on. Hold on, y'all. Hold on, my loves. Okay. I had an alert on my alarm system, so I was checking my cameras, honey. Okay. So let's continue. Housekeeping jobs up north were frequently advertised on the radio in the South. And that's how my mom found out about this job. Her new employer paid for the travel expenses, room and board, as well as provided her with a salary of $250 per week. With this opportunity in front of her, my mom never looked back. Now imagine having the option of either picking cotton out in the sun all day for $2, right? We would say $2 a day. Yep, $2 a day. Or going up north, having someone pay your travel expenses, your room and board, and pay you $250 a week. Okay? And all you got to do is leave your great grandmother's house where it was abuse taking place, where you had a raggedy step great granddaddy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have been gone with the quickness too, okay? Never look back. Okay, here we go. My mom settled into her new life quite nicely. She ended up working for a few families, all of whom were Jewish. She often said that the Jewish families she worked for considered her to be part of the family. She had access to the family car once she learned how to drive. Working for these families was the first exposure my mom had to a family dynamic where she didn't feel unwanted the way my great grandmother's husband made her feel. She continued working as a maid for about 2 years until she met my father in 1962. Okay, so here we are in 1962 at this point. Okay, and the author's mother and father met in during that time. Okay, 1962. She met my father for one day when she went shopping in the nearby village of Hempstead. On this particular day, she went to the beauty salon. Next to the salon was a candy store that my mom walked into to buy a soda. As she walked in the store, she was immediately noticed by the owner, my dad. Okay? So y'all, she had just went to the beauty. Okay, look, that couldn't have been set up any better way. She had just went to the beauty salon, so you know she had that fresh, fried, dyed, and laid to the side hairstyle, y'all. Like that's some good timing. Okay, she went in there. She was like, "Oh, let me go in here buy me a soda, honey." And what happened? The owner noticed her. Okay, honey. Go and get you an owner of a candy store. Okay. Okay, so she met her dad at the candy store. Needless to say, about a year later, she gave birth to my oldest brother, and my parents' cohabitation culminated in the birth of 8 children between 1963 and 1975. Y'all, are y'all hearing this? She met him at the candy store. He was still married to somebody else, okay? So that's still a factor. He's still married to somebody else at the time. So between 1963 and 1975 is when the author is born, okay? So before my mom knew it, by the age of 35, she found herself saddled. Oh, y'all hear that? Wait, what does saddled mean? A seat fastened in the back of a horse or other animal for riding, typically made of leather and raised at the front or rear. The next definition, a seat on a bicycle or motorcycle. The third definition, something resembling a saddle in appearance, function, or position in particular. Number 4 definition, a low part of a ridge between two higher points or peaks. Goodness. The number 5 definition is a mathematics definition. It is the low region of a curve between two high points, especially in 3 dimensions. One representing the highest point of the curve in one direction and the lowest. Like, y'all, I'm not even gonna go reading any more of this, but like when you think of saddled, right? You think of being like fastened down, like you just can't go anywhere, right? Like you are held down. So that's interesting that she used those words. That's why I tell you guys, you need to pay attention. Pay attention to the words that people use, right? Words mean something. Words mean something. And if we listen to a person, but we change their words, we may be changing what they're saying and what their intent is by what they're saying. Okay. So it's very important that you pay attention to the words that people use. Now, she says, before my mom knew it, by the age of 35, she found herself saddled with 8 kids with a man who was 20 plus years her senior. Okay? Are y'all listening to this? And he was married to another woman. So by the age of 35, she has 8 children by a man who is 20 years older than her and who is married to another woman. Are y'all listening to this? This is crazy. My mom's dreams of becoming a teacher were nothing more than a distant memory. She was unable to fulfill her career goals and take care of 8 children at the same time. This reality caused major problems between my parents that spiraled out of control. If you could conduct a case study on my family, you would easily determine that my mom harbored resentment and eventually hatred towards my father that her children paid the price for in the end. I mean, I can imagine. I can imagine. Did y'all hear just the demographics of, of what her mom went through? And remember, her mom was born, and 10 days later, her mother that gave birth to her died. Essentially giving childbirth, right? So you have to think about the type of woman, or the woman, like the her life outlook at this point, where she's given birth to the author of this book. Okay? Imagine how that impacted the author of this book. Okay? My mom leashed an untamable anger in the form of physical abuse that her children came to expect ritually. Y'all. Golly. That is sad, really, While she was careful not to hit us when my father was home, unfortunately, because my father was out of the house most of the time managing business, the beatings were quite frequent. Oh, you guys. Because of this dynamic, my dad was not there to stop my mom from hammering us with the same type of abuse she so desperately sought to escape from during her own sordid childhood. And how many times do we end up doing the very thing to our children or people that we love that we were trying to escape from, or that we just barely escaped from, Abuses of all types. Because you don't grow out of your trauma, right? You just continue to grow. Right? So you don't, just because you start to have your own children and you have your own family, you have a job, you have responsibilities, you're going to school, you're trying to make something of your life, does not mean that the abuses and the trauma that you experienced as a child just go away, right? They don't just go away. In fact, what they tend to do is rear their ugly head at the exact wrong time and against the wrong people. That's what usually happens. And this is no different from in this story, where you see a woman who has experienced a lot of upsets in her life. She runs away from all of the, issues that she grew up with, only to repeat those patterns, only to repeat those patterns with her own children. Okay. Ironically enough, she came down upon her children because she felt a loss of control over her circumstances. This abuse continued, and the resentment and hatred also manifested itself in other ways within our fractured family structure, particularly the relationship between my mom and dad. Eventually, all of her children internalized their relationship in their own way. So basically, all of the kids more than likely developed maladaptive behaviors, right? So there may have been siblings of hers that watched this dynamic between their parents, and if it was a boy, he may have went on to abuse um the woman that he was with, or his children, right? He may never get married, just like his father did, like never marry the woman that he is having children by. Like there's a lot of different maladaptive behaviors that end up coming from these your family of origin, basically, right? A lot of maladaptive behaviors, because this is our first experience into the world. So this is this is what shapes us the most. Okay, so let's keep going. While I can recite to you numerous stories of family trials and tribulations that my family endured, what really had a profound impact on all of us growing up was my mom's view of family, and how that view was shaped by her upbringing, and particularly how she viewed men. Y'all, do y'all see this? Do y'all see how this is taking shape? It's taking shape, and now we're like 2-3 generations down the line, and we're still having issues from generations ago. It's how it happens. Growing up, growing up hating her grandmother's husband, coupled with the limited ability to love, caused a chain reaction of events that demonstrated how she viewed our family dynamic. This, in turn, is how she raised us and how she handled conflict with my dad. Y'all, like this could totally, in a lot of cases be my story. And I would venture to say that it's probably a lot of our story, because during this time period, like if you are like of the same age as me, or of the same age as my parents, or something like that, more than likely you experience the exact same thing. Because during this time period, a lot of our families were experiencing the same dysfunction across the board. People were experiencing the same dysfunction. Like when the crack epidemic came into play, people migrating from the south to the north to find work, to get a better life, to get freedom, to run away from racism and all of its foolishness that was more prevalent in the south during that time. The rise of different gangs. My father was, in particular, was involved in a gang when he was 10 years old. So you have to think about, a lot of us who are around the same age dealt with a lot of the same dysfunction within our families. Okay, we dealt with a lot of the same dysfunction. So, case in point is what it says here. Case in point is one of the worst memories I have of my childhood. When I was approximately 10 or 11 years old, our family was falling apart at the seams. Not only were we evicted from our home, and our belongings were literally placed at the curb, we were forced to move into the bottom half of the house right next door on the same street. How embarrassing to have all of your belongings thrown out on the street, and then have those same belongings stuffed into half of a house right next door, with 11 people living in the house. 11 people. It became 11 people when my great grandmother came to live with us after Mr. Johnson died. So Mr. Johnson died, then the great grandmother comes to live with them. The house we were evicted from wasn't even big enough for 11 people to live in. So now imagine 11 people living in a house half its size. And she puts 3 exclamation points here, okay? So she's like, she wants you to understand. The author wants you to understand here that, listen, it was not a comfortable situation, okay? It was not comfortable. I just remember all of us sleeping on the floor and on top of one another. We were miserable and it felt like we weren't speaking to one another. My parents definitely did not speak to one another. Apparently, my father lost all of his businesses and my mom had to go out and get a job. Oh my goodness. My mom never seemed happy. I could totally relate. My mom never seemed happy either growing up. Never. Never seemed happy. There was no privacy in the house, and my siblings and I were always competing for things and fighting for space. My refuge was getting out of the house and going to school. Imagine school being your refuge when home should be your refuge, you know? So now guess what? Just like my mom, when she was my age, I couldn't wait to get out of the house and be on my own. When I got older, I would often say my siblings were just people I happened to grow up with. Child, I feel the same way. I feel the same way because it's like, who are these people? You know what I'm saying? Like, did we really grow up together? I don't know. You know, that statement all but tells you how I viewed family. I had no sense of unity, togetherness, or a concept of family first. Instead, I adopted the same mindset my mom adopted when she left Alabama. So, needless to say, I did not have a moral obligation to family. Everyone I dealt with, family members and strangers alike, were considered on the same level playing field without any allowances or due consideration given to anyone related to me. I feel the same way. Y'all, this story is resonating with me like on a whole other level. Okay? I feel the same way. I do not give special allowances or considerations to family members. I just don't. And I will cut family members off like, y'all, listen, like I'm flipping a switch. I will cut family off so quick. Family doesn't mean any type of like of a special place in my life or a special consideration only if they are just special people, but not because they are family, right? So I don't hold family in any type of high regard either. I mean, but you guys can probably see based on the stuff that has happened, like since, I've been telling my story about, my upbringing and stuff like that and the feedback that I got from family members. They've pretty much proven to me that they hold no special consideration in my life, And I can really list on one hand of all the family members that I have. Dietrich hadn't included, you guys, because he's my first cousin. Like the outreach or the support that I've gotten from family since I came forward with telling my story about my upbringing and my family, I have not gotten much, like a whole lot of reception from them. I just haven't. Which further tells me that the family members that I have are just people, people that don't have any special place in my life. So I will cut them off just like I'll cut a stranger off. Or, if they're good people, I'll embrace, strangers just like some people would embrace family members, you know. But also that's because I grew up in Germany. So I grew up away from my family as well. So I didn't even really know them growing up. So I don't even really consider that they have to give me any type of special consideration because I'm family. You know what I'm saying? So I don't view them as special, but I don't believe that they should view me as special either. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't even know them, so it doesn't really even matter. I don't consider them in any type of special light, and they don't have to consider me that way either. That's just how I feel about it. How do y'all feel about family? Like for y'all, is it like family is like they have like a special place and it's like family over everything, and like you'll give family the benefit of the doubt, you'll give them leeway to do stuff, you'll go out of your way for them. I just don't have that viewpoint. I just don't. But I'm interested in knowing if you do. Like there's no judgment. There's no judgment here one way or another. But I'm just, I find it fascinating, and low key, like I'm okay, so I'm not jealous, right? But what's like the next step down from like being jealous? Just like a little bit of like, oh, I wish I could, you know? But like I'm happy for people who do have really close relationships with their family, but I just don't. But, you know, it's all good either way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess that's a little bit weird, but I don't know. That's just how I grew up, y'all. But anyway, let me continue reading. Okay. I operated in a rather linear fashion in which I proceeded with extreme caution and made decisions on a case by case basis. Yep. My character and personality were conducive to this type of reasoning, and I functioned this way for years and years until I engaged in needed self reflection to understand what I was doing and why. Okay. So just because you like admit that you are this way and you acknowledge that you are this way, it doesn't necessarily even mean that you need to make a change. But being self-aware, right? So doing some self-reflection and just understanding who you are and why you do and think the way you do or why you make decisions the way you do is very good insight that you should have about yourself. So don't think that self-reflection always means that you need to change. Okay? I know that change is hard, and a lot of times people look at change as something they don't really want to do, right? They don't really want to embark on that. And that's understandable. But you should still do some internal reflection just so that you know yourself, right? Even if you decide that you won't change any of these behaviors about yourself, you should at least know yourself. Okay? So I encourage self-reflection even if you don't change. Okay? Let's continue reading. And although my family background and how I internalized that background served to protect me tremendously, my concept of family needed to be reset on my terms and not the circumstances I was born into. This is key right here. This is key because I'm telling you guys, having this self-reflection and knowing why you stand on your core values is just good information for you to know. And then if you say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to reset, how I view family, even though the way I have viewed them has protected me, it's kept me, it's kept my boundaries up. I didn't make any special consideration for family just based on that fact alone, all of that good stuff, right? You still may want to change your mindset about it just because you don't want the circumstances to dictate how you view things, right? You want your core values and who you are and your discernment to guide and, to guide how you view things, not your circumstances. Does that make sense? Hopefully, I'm hoping that makes sense. Y'all get in the chat and let me know if that makes sense. So the author is saying, I wanted to change my concept of family, right? Because I just wanted to be on my terms. Not because of the trauma that I grew up with, not because of the way my mom viewed family, because of the way my father viewed family or anything like that. I just wanted to be on my terms. Okay? Let me continue reading. My logical thinking coupled with the core of who I am was prone to discern Excuse me, I feel like I read that wrong. My logical thinking, coupled with the core of who I am, was prone to discern when faced with tough issues. So she says, that's the way my logical thinking is. The way my logical thinking is, coupled with who I am, right? With the core of who I am, left me like more prone to really analyzing situations, right? Stepping back from the situation and looking at it objectively, having a bit of self awareness, taking accountability, using my intuition, proceeding with caution, that type of stuff, right? However, I was inclined to make extreme decisions based upon the trauma I experienced as a child, as opposed to making rational judgments rooted in objectivity and fact. Okay? So even though she was prone to discern, her basic disposition was that she was going to make decisions really based on the trauma. Even though she analyzed the situation, right? Even though she did all of the things in discernment, she still ultimately made a decision that was rooted in her trauma. And a lot of times you will find that you do this. You're a rational thinker, but ultimately you may make a decision based off of impulse because of how you were raised, how you grew up. So it serves you to really do some internal analysis and change those things about you that hinder or that impact your decision to make good decisions, in a negative way. Like, so change those things about yourself. So I was discerning in a hit or miss fashion. This is not good enough for discernment to thrive and guide. It's not. It's just not good enough. So you may be a discerning individual, but until you do the work, right? Until you do the work to heal the trauma, to really know why you're making the decisions that you're making, just because you're discerning does not mean that you are actually using discernment to its fullest capacity, because you have things that are hindering your ability to use it to its fullest capacity. Okay? So once I analyzed my actions and beliefs, I began to formulate what I wanted and needed in a family. Excuse me, y'all. I also learned the value of family and defined it with purposeful boundaries in order to create the family I desired. This is encouraging for someone right now to know that you can create the family you desire. Just because you were born into a certain family does not mean that you are stuck there. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have boundaries. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't also be treated with respect and dignity, that you should be taken advantage of. It doesn't mean those things, right? It means that you can have the family that you desire. I was no longer a stranger to the concept of family. I simply defined it on my terms, drawing from my background, experiences, beliefs, and goals in the process. Therefore, establishing family as a core value is an avenue for teachable moments in life that help you deal with non-family members and family members alike. Okay? Some of us deal with things from family members that we would never deal with from strangers. And I would caution you, right? I would caution you that you should deal with everyone from a position of discernment. Deal with everyone from a position of discernment, no matter the relationship. Okay? So when you establish family as your core value, right? Like you could totally value family, but use this concept, right? Use this value to show you that, hey, you need to be dealing with everybody from a position of discernment, no matter the relationship. That is why the core value of family with boundaries is one of the best core values to uphold, as it acts as a breeding ground for discernment. Core value of family with boundaries. And what did we talk about the last time? Is that boundaries are not some negative thing, right? That make you feel like, look, you're putting up walls, you're distancing people, you're being off putting. No, that is not what boundaries are. Boundaries actually serve to protect the relationship and those in the relationship. Boundaries are your friend. Okay? But the first thing you need to do is understand your definition and concept of family and know the how and why you develop these views. Let's consider some reflective questions about family, okay? Now let's get into, ask yourself these questions. Remember, when we do the reflective questions, it is for the intent that you reflect, okay? And be honest with your answers. Be honest with your assessment of where you are, where you want to be, where you've come from as it relates to these questions, okay? So, number one, how do you view family, right? Number one is family one of your core values? Why or why not? Is family one of your core values? For me, family as a core value ranks probably like fifth or sixth. It just does for me. So how does it rank for you? Let me know in the chat. Number two, describe the family structure you were born into. For example, one or two family household, a number of siblings, etc. Were you raised by your grandparents? Were you raised by your aunt? Were you a foster care? Were you adopted? Like let me know what your family of origin was. What was the structure that you were born into? What was the structure? Number three, what past experiences shaped your view of family? Do you recall any traumatic experiences growing up? Explain. So what happened? Like what happened? So what had happened? Okay. What had happened was the family that I grew up with, child. Mm-mm-mm. So let me know. What is your past experience? Or what past experiences shaped how you view family? Did y'all have like a major family fallout? Did somebody expose the family matriarch or patriarch and then the whole family just um just kind of dismantled, just like what happened? Do you recall any traumatic experiences? Was there a funeral? Was there a wedding, that was like traumatic for everybody? And then, the family just kind of did something strange, like, what's up? Let your girl know. What's going on with your family, child? Number four, in what ways do you feel you can improve upon your view of family? How can you improve upon your view of family? Is it a matter of making a mindset change, a viewpoint change? Is it a matter of saying, okay, this is the family that I grew up with, but, they don't shape how I view family moving forward? What ways can you improve that? Okay. Now, it says here, use these questions to understand what you believe family is and how family has functioned in your life. The next step would be to look at the people you consider to be family and analyze your current relationships with these family members. Notice the wording here, right? Look at the people you consider to be family. Okay? Because we got that cousin that ain't really our cousin, but we call him our cousin because that's family right there. So let me know. Like, tell me about that situation. Um, and then it says, analyze your current relationship with these family members. Maybe you have a friend who you consider to be family, consider to be your sister or your brother, just because they have shown, that how you view a sister and brother, like they embody that view. So let me know, like, do you have somebody who embodies the viewpoint of a brother and sister that your actual brother and sister never embodied? Or maybe you view someone as a mother or a father, and because they always treated you, like you were their child, like they treated you special, like you wanted a parent to treat you. So let me know, like, do you have those type of like people that you consider to be family but aren't technically family? You will then need to determine how some or all of those relationships may need to change. Let's think about that. You have somebody that's just been around for a long time that you actually need to change how you view them. Maybe you didn't give them enough credit, that they've been around for a long time and they have shown and proved that, they are more family than family is. I don't know, you know? Or maybe somebody you need to cut out. You just been considering them family, but it's like, look, we're not family. And I need to make that clear. I don't know. Do y'all have these situations? Okay. You cannot be afraid to change. Listen, she should have put that in bold, underline, italicized, um, parentheses, exclamation points. Okay. You cannot be afraid to change, especially when change is necessary for your own personal growth and development. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do what is best for you. Don't be afraid to do what is best for you. Don't be afraid to change. Okay? Now, when we come back, we are going to talk about the number 2 core value is love. The number 2 core value is love. And that is what we're going to talk about when we come back. I am about to go take me a good old juicy nap. Okay? Listen, it's been a rough weekend, but last week, y'all, I went to Atlanta and hung out with my cousin and one of my besties, and we had a good old time. So I'm gonna have to tell y'all about that later on. Plus, we're gonna come back and do our writing session. We are still going to do our writing session today, you guys, okay? And I'm thinking that will probably happen around 2:30-ish, somewhere around that time frame. And then, of course, you guys know we have line dance class tonight at 5:30. So we are going to get ready for that. Plus, I have a couple of projects around here that I need to work on. I need to do the fans. I told you guys I need to stamp the fans and prepare them for sale and all of that good stuff. But let me know in the chat, what do y'all think about the core value of family? Remember the questions that we asked, right? Do you have family that you actually view as like, you know, like these are like not really my family members type of thing, like, or do you have like this like friends of yours that are just like, yes, this is my family right here, because they are more family than my family has ever been. What shaped your viewpoint of family? Like, what's your family origin story? And remember, you can write about this when we do our 2-hour writing sessions. This could be like your topic, talk about your origin story, and what shaped your view of the world, right? Because our family, right? Our family has the greatest impact on us in our decision making. So it makes sense for us to delve into that topic of family so that we can do some internal analysis into who we are as individuals and how we think, okay? And how we make decisions. So that is all I have for you today. Get in the chat. Let me know, your questions, your comments, your concerns, your answers to the questions that were presented today. How have you been liking this series on A Yearn to Discern? Have you been enriched and empowered and enlightened by the content that we have been reading in this book, the stories that we have been able to tell, the scenarios that we've worked through together? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. And we will just be back again with another video on discernment, okay? Finding purpose and fulfillment through discernment. And you could totally find the purpose of your life. You could totally have fulfilling relationships, a life that is thriving and moving forward and joyful and, peaceful. Because that's what discernment does for you. It gives you that peace that you have made the right decision for yourself and those around you, and ultimately your world, So I will be back later on today for a writing session. So make sure that you join me right around 2:30ish this afternoon. And for those of you who are local who will be joining me for line dance class, I will see you at line dance class. You guys know that I love you, and I'm wishing you a wonderful, blessed, and prosperous day. Bye-bye for now.